Hello, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Literary Love 123, where we always draw the cat eye sharp enough to kill a man and extol the literary merits of the horror genre. But today's video is something that's a little bit different. We're all going to be taking a few sips of the Swift tea and talking about book pairings for every song on the Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. So let's do a quick intro and get back and talk about books and songs that go together. The making of this video has definitely been a labor of love. The Tortured Poets Department was released back in April, but it's taken me all of this time to sit with the album, to think in depth about the songs and what they mean to me, and the books that I feel would go well with each song. And you may disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the pairings. Do you have some book ideas that you feel would go with certain songs that I didn't think about? Be respectful, but let me know your thoughts. I always encourage you to make, your thoughts known down in the comments so we can keep the discussion going. For each song, I created a visual, which will show first. And following that visual, I will discuss more in depth about why I chose that book for that song. For Fortnite, I paired the poetry and journals of Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath battled major depressive disorder and other mental illnesses throughout her life, and her poetry often reflects that. So, the lines in Fortnite that I feel go well with the poetry and journals of Sylvia Plath are: all my mornings are Mondays stuck in an endless February. I took the miracle move on drug. The effects were temporary. My pairings for the Tortured Poets Department start off a little bit on the nose. So, the poetry of Dylan Thomas, the memoir Just Kids, written by Patti Smith. But I also want to recommend the poetry of William Blake, who Dylan Thomas often drew inspiration from. And then a little bit out of the box, maybe, but because of the song's reference to the Chelsea Hotel for New York City vibes plus troubled relationships, I recommend Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin and Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. For My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys, I paired that with The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, which is a reimagining of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but it is written from Elizabeth's perspective. And let me just say, if you think Victor might be the villain in the original novel, then I think you'll really like this one. For So Long London, I am pairing that song with Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Although Cackle takes place in the United States, there is a line in So Long London that I feel fits the main character of Cackle very well. And that line is, I'm pissed off you let me give you all this youth for free. So in Cackle, the main character has a boyfriend that she thinks is about to be her fiance. He breaks things off with her. So she leaves the big city to go to a small town. And in that small town, she discovers the power of being herself and being independent. A disclaimer for this pairing: I have not read Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead yet, but it is on my TBR, so I'm familiar with the concepts of the book. So let me just read the synopsis for Midnight is the Darkest Hour. Okay. Midnight is the Darkest Hour is a twisted tale of murder, obsessive love, and the beastly urges that lie dormant within us all, even the God-fearing folk of Bottom Springs, Louisiana. In her small hometown, librarian Ruth Cornier has always felt like an outsider, even as her beloved father rains fire and brimstone warnings from the pulpit of Holy Fire Baptist. Unfortunately for Ruth, the only thing the townspeople fear more than God and the devil are the myths that haunt the area, like the story of the Low Man, a vampiric figure said to steal into sinners' bedrooms and kill them on moonless nights. When a skull is found deep in the swamp next to a mysterious carved symbol, Bottom Springs is thrown into an uproar, and Ruth realizes only she and Everett, an old friend with a dark past, have the power to comb the town's secret underbelly in search of true evil. And there are a few lines in particular from But Daddy, I Love Him that I think fit the synopsis of Midnight is the Darkest Hour really well. And those lines are, I just learned these people try and save you because they hate you. I'll tell you something right now. I'd rather burn my whole life down than listen to one more second of all this bitching and moaning. I'll tell you something about my good name. It's mine alone to disgrace. I don't cater to all these vipers dressed in empaths' clothing. Another disclaimer for this next pairing. I have not read My Husband by Maul Ventura. It's on my TBR. I've heard a lot of great and interesting things about it. I do know it is about a woman who is completely obsessed or down bad for her husband. So, a couple of lines from the song Down Bad that I think would fit this book are, what if I can't have him? I might just die. It would make no difference. Down bad, waking up in blood, staring at the sky, come back and pick me up. What if I can't have us? Okay, third disclaimer in a row. I have not read the next book that I'm going to talk about. Just be patient because the next several books that I talk about will be books that I've read. But I paired The Pisces by Melissa Broder with Fresh Out the Slammer. I have read Death Valley by Melissa Broder and I really absolutely loved it. So let me give you the synopsis for The Pisces. Lucy has been writing her dissertation on Sappho for 9 years when she and her boyfriend break up in a dramatic flameout. After she bottoms out in Phoenix, her sister in Los Angeles insists Lucy dog sit for the summer. Annika's home is a gorgeous glass cube on Venice Beach, but Lucy can find little relief from her anxiety. Not in the Greek chorus of women in her love addiction therapy group, not in her frequent Tinder excursions, not even in Dominic, the foxhound's easy affection. Everything changes when Lucy becomes entranced by an eerily attractive swimmer while sitting alone on the beach rocks one night. But when Lucy learns the truth about his identity, their relationship, and Lucy's understanding of what love should look like, take a very unexpected turn. A masterful blend of vivid realism and giddy fantasy, pairing hilarious frankness with a pulse-racing eroticism, The Pisces is a story about falling in obsessive love with a merman. And the lines from Fresh Out the Slammer that I feel like would suit this book well are, and no matter what I've done, it wouldn't matter anyway. Ain't no way I'm going to screw up now that I know what's at stake. So for the song Florida, I want to pair Ghost Summer by Tananarive Due, which is a short story collection that is set in Florida, and You Like It Darker by Stephen King, which is also a short story collection. Several of the stories in that book are set in Florida, Both of these book recommendations have a little bit of a dark theme, right? I've got some regrets. I'll bury them in Florida. So I think that's an excellent pairing for both the scenery, the setting, but also the kind of dark vibe of the song and the books. For Guilty as Sin, I want to pair that with the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And this whole idea of why should two people who love each other feel guilty? Why should it be a sin? It shouldn't be. And the lines from Guilty as Sin that I felt like matched some lines from the Song of Achilles are, what if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? If long suffering propriety is what they want from me, they don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. I choose you and me religiously. And a couple of lines that I want to showcase from the Song of Achilles are, he is half of my soul, as the poets say. And we were like gods at the dawning of the world, and our joy was so bright we could see nothing else but the other. And you also know on my channel, we support women's rights and women's wrongs. So let's talk about books to pair with Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. So I have 3 books for this song: Carrie by Stephen King, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. So one of the lines that I feel like pair really well with Carrie in Who's Afraid of Little Old Me: you lured me and you hurt me and you taught me. I want to snarl and show you just how disturbed this has made me. You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. That line also pairs well with The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And then the line that also pairs well with The Yellow Wallpaper plus A Certain Hunger is, you caged me and then called me crazy. Now, there is a particular line in A Certain Hunger that is almost word for word like, you caged me and then you called me crazy. In that quote from A Certain Hunger, Chelsea G. Summers writes, we like to forget that men imprisoned women in the house and expected gratitude in return. For the song, I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can, I'm pairing that with the classic by Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff, who is the ultimate bad boy, but that is not to let Catherine off the hook either, because she needs to fix herself too. So that is not a beautiful love story. That is a look into the very darkness and depths of the souls of 2 people. So maybe they should fix themselves, but just that idea about I can fix them, no, really I can, I immediately thought of Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. The 3 recommendations that I have for LOML, or Love of My Life, all came from my friend Natalie on Instagram, and I'm going to link her channel down below so you can go check her channel out. And the first one is a poetry collection titled After That by Lorna Crozier. This is a book written from the dark hollow we fall into when we lose those we love. Lorna Crozier's poetry finds the words to engage with the grief that comes from the death of her partner, the writer Patrick Lane, whom she lived with for 40 years, many of them tumultuous. With grace and precision, she illuminates sorrow. Crozier takes us through the domestic and natural worlds into the cagey and metaphysical space we call the beyond. Without ever offering false comfort, the poems turn over our own grief so that we can catch a glimpse of the new life inside us again. The next recommendation is Monogamy by Sue Miller. This is a novel. Graham and Annie have been married for nearly 30 years. Their seemingly effortless devotion has long been the envy of their circle of friends and acquaintances. By all appearance, they are a golden couple. Graham is a bookseller, a big, gregarious man with large appetites. Eager to please, curious, a lover of life, and the convivial host of frequent lively parties at his and Annie's comfortable house in Cambridge. Annie, more reserved and introspective, is a photographer. She is about to have her first gallery show after a 6-year lull and is worried that the best years of her career may be behind her. They have 2 adult children. When Graham suddenly dies, this man whose enormous presence has seemed to dominate their lives together, Annie is lost. What is the point of going on without him? Then, while she is still in mourning, she discovers a ruinous secret, one that will spiral her into darkness and force her to question whether she ever truly knew the man who loved her. The third pairing for Love of My Life is Hereafter by Amy Lynn. It is a memoir. Amy Lynn never expected to find a love like the one she shares with her husband, Curtis, a gifted young architect who pulls her toward joy, adventure, and greater self-acceptance. On a sweltering August morning, only a few months shy of the newlyweds' move to Vancouver, 32-year-old Curtis heads out to run a half marathon with Amy's family. It's the last time she sees her husband alive. What follows is a rich and unflinchingly honest portrayal of her life with Curtis, the vortex created by his death, and the ongoing struggle Amy faces as she attempts to understand her own experience in the context of commonly held truths about what the grieving process looks like. For the song, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, I chose the book The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, another classic. And the idea here is that this face that you present to the world may not be exactly what's going on inside. And so the lines from You Can Do It or I Can Do It With a Broken Heart that fit the picture of Dorian Gray. You know you're good when you can even do it with a broken heart because I'm miserable and nobody even knows. And in the picture of Dorian Gray, we have Dorian who has a painting that ages instead of him aging. But what it's really more about is all the ugliness inside of Dorian Gray is exhibited on the painting. So he's presenting one thing to the world, but inside he's miserable. And a line that I want to quote from the picture of Dorian Gray is, "Behind every exquisite thing that existed, there was something tragic." The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. The first pairing is Our Hideous Progyny by C.E. McGill, which was one of my top 10 reads of 2023. It is a Frankenstein reimagining, but this one is about a husband who will do whatever it takes to be successful, even taking credit for things that his wife does. And then a recommendation from my friend Natalie that fits the vibe, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, is Unraveling Oliver, which is also about a man who will go for success at all costs, no matter what that does to his family. Small Men. So for the alchemy, I paired that song with Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Now, Butcher and Blackbird is not my cup of tea. I did read it for my Horror Reader Reads romance vlog, but it does fit the vibe of this song. In Butcher and Blackbird, we have woman and a man who are both serial killers, but they only kill other serial killers. So think Dexter meets Dark Romance. they end up meeting one another and deciding that they're going to have a contest every year to see who can kill a certain serial killer first. And in the midst of this, because it is a dark romance, they end up falling for each other. So, a couple of lines from The Alchemy that I think go well with Butcher and Blackbird are: ditch the clowns, get the crown, baby, I'm the one to beat. Because the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. The next pairing I want to talk about is Clara Bo with Rouge by Mona Awad and Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. So to me, Clara Bo is about the price of fame. It's about no matter what you do, you're going to age. You're not going to always be the most beautiful. Someone younger is going to take your place. And so the line that really made me think about Rouge and Natural Beauty is: beauty is a beast that roars down on all fours, demanding more. Only when your girlish glow flickers just so do they let you know it's hell on earth to be heavenly. And both Rouge and Natural Beauty dive into the downside of the beauty industry and the lengths that some will go to in order to remain beautiful. All right, we're halfway there. So get you a sip of Swiftea and hang on for the next part. For the black dog, I get dark academia vibes, hanging out in bars, secrets, right? So I decided to pair the black dog with two of my favorite dark academia novels: The Secret History by Donna Tartt and If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So, a couple of the lines that I wanted to showcase from the black dog that I think fit well with both If We Were Villains and The Secret History are: now I want to sell my house and set fire to all my clothes and hire a priest to come and exorcise my demons, even if I die screaming. And I hope you hear it. Because in both If We Were Villains and The Secret History, secrets haunt those who try to keep them. And speaking of secrets, this might be coffee, it might be tea, but it might be a cocktail. You'll never know. It's hidden in my mug. And speaking of secrets, the main character in the next novel may have a few secrets of her own. She's a Disney princess, or they don't really say Disney princess, but she's a frozen kind of ice princess. But she may also be a serial killer. I don't know. So I'm gonna get you back. The line, pick your poison, babe. I'm poison either way. And the quote from Maeve Fly: the one who occupies the space of both princess and villainess. So for the Albatross, I'm slipping in a couple of romantic poems. And by romantic, I mean romantic era. The first is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, which will give you a background into the albatross and what an albatross means. And then La Belle Dame Sans Merci by John Keats. And the line from the Albatross that I think fits both of these poems really well is: she's the albatross. She is here to destroy you. My Swiftea is making me a little bit giddy, but I'm going to try to get serious for this next pairing. And I am pairing the song Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus with Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. So in Ghost Eaters, you have this drug that you can take that allows you to see people who have passed on. And the main character's boyfriend, they had kind of a tumultuous on and off again kind of relationship, but he had a drug problem and he ended up dying one night. And he had called her for help, and she was just kind of tired of his games and she didn't go. And so it was a very haunting story about trauma and about the past. And so I feel like these lines from Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus would pair well with Ghost Eaters. And the lines are, your hologram stumbled into my apartment. You said some things that I can't unabsorb. You turned me into an idea of sorts. You needed me, but you needed drugs more. And I couldn't watch it happen. The next pairing is for How Did It End, which is one of my favorites from the duo album. And it is one that haunts me. And so I could pair it with nothing else except A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. A Dowry of Blood, we're following a bride of Dracula. And we know from the very beginning that she has had to end Dracula's life or second life, whatever the case may be. And we're getting throughout the story kind of what brought them to this point. It is so haunting and so beautifully written. And a few of the lines from How Did It End that would go really well with A Dowry of Blood are, we hereby conduct this post mortem. He was a hothouse flower to my outdoorsman. Our maladies were such we could not cure them, and so a touch that was my birthright became foreign. For this next pairing, I know what you're thinking. Did she find a way to put her favorite Stephen King novel into this video? And the answer is yes. So I am pairing So High School with It by Stephen King. And hear me out. This is why. There are a few lines in So High School that I think fit well with the Losers Club. The way that they were so close with each other during childhood, then they went away, they grew up, they forgot each other, they forgot about the things that had happened. But when they came back together, their memories slowly started to return. So here are the lines. Tell me about the first time you saw me. I'll drink what you think, and I'm high from smoking your jokes all damn night. The brink of a wrinkle in time. I paired I Hate It Here with two classics. First of all, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, which is one of my favorites. And the reason is because there is a line in I Hate It Here that states, I hate it here, so I will go to lunar valleys in my mind. And in We Have Always Lived in the Castle, one of the characters, Mary Cat, is always talking about living on the moon, going somewhere to escape their small town where they are the subject of judgment and they are ostracized. And another line from I Hate It Here that also fits well with this idea is small town fears. The other pairing is with The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And that is because very, clearly the line, I hate it here, so I will go to secret gardens in my mind. This idea of a place you can get away to, a place you can escape and really be free and be who you are. Continuing with the theme of escaping to be free and to be able to be who you are, let's talk about Thank You, Amy, and why I paired this song with Tiffany D. Jackson's The Weight of Blood. So, The Weight of Blood is a reimagining of Carrie, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but let's just say The Weight of Blood ends on a more hopeful note than Carrie does. And some of the lines from Thank You, Amy, that I feel like fit well with The Weight of Blood are, "It was always the same, searing pain, but I prayed that one day I could say, all that time you were throwing punches, I was building something, and I couldn't wait to show you it was real." The next pairing I want to talk about is "I'll Look in People's Windows" and "Deliver Me" by Elle Nash. So I just read Deliver Me this month. It is a Southern Gothic style book. It is very bleak. It is very gritty. And the main character longs for certain things. She longs to be a mother. She longs to have a different kind of life than what she does. She's always watching other people. And I don't want to talk a lot about it because it is a book that needs several content warnings. But I paired it with "I Look in People's Windows" because of the lines, "I look in people's windows in case you're at their table. Does it feel all right to not know me? I'm addicted to the if only. So I look in people's windows like I'm some deranged weirdo." Because the main character in Deliver Me does feel like she's on the outskirts and like she can't live the life that she sees everybody else living. The next recommendation I want to talk about is The Prophecy, and pairing that with Edith Hamilton's Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes, because so much of that book is about fate and prophecy and whether or not the main characters in the myths are able to escape their fate. Can they do anything different? And you find out that pretty much no, their fate is their fate no matter what they do. And sometimes the very things that they try to do to avoid their fate end up only fulfilling their fate instead. So the lines from The Prophecy that I think would fit well with especially some of the stories about the women: "Hand on the throttle, thought I caught lightning in a bottle. Oh, but it's gone again. And it was written, I got cursed like Eve got bitten. Oh, was it punishment?" The next pairing is Cassandra with the Indian Lake Trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. Jade Daniels is most definitely a Cassandra figure. So in Greek mythology, Cassandra has the gift of prophecy. But the problem is that even though her prophecies are true, no one believes her. Something very similar can be said of Jade, especially in the first book in the trilogy, My Heart is a Chainsaw. So Jade is obsessed with slashers, and she starts to believe that there is a slasher that is killing people in her town, but no one is really listening to her. And there's also a deeper thing going on too within Jade, and something that happened to her in the past. And some people know it, but nothing has really been done about it. And I won't say anything else about that particular part. But if you know, then some of these lines that I'm going to share from Cassandra will ring true for both that thing that happened to Jade in her past and for the present with the slasher that is wreaking havoc on the town. So the lines from Cassandra are, when the first stone's thrown, they're screaming. In the streets, there's a raging riot. When it's burned the bitch, they're shrieking. When the truth comes out, it's quiet. They knew the whole time that I was onto something. The family, the pure greed, the Christian chorus line, they all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. Bet they never spared a prayer for my soul. You can mark my words that I said it first. In a morning warning, no one heard. The next song is Peter, and I paired it with A House at the Bottom of a Lake by Josh Mallerman, and a recommendation from my friend Natalie, Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. So both A House at the Bottom of a Lake and Meet Me at the Lake are about young love, first loves, and promises that you make and don't usually keep because you grow up and things change. So, a couple of lines from Peter that I think fit this idea are: said you were going to grow up, then you were going to come find me. Words from the mouths of babes, promises oceans deep, but never to keep. The next pairing is The Bolter with another recommendation from my friend Natalie, and The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman is the book I'm pairing with The Bolter. And let's read the synopsis of The Lake of Dead Languages. 20 years ago, Jane Hudson fled the Heart Lake School for Girls in the Adirondacks after a terrible tragedy. The week before her graduation, in that sheltered wonderland, 3 lives were taken, all victims of suicide. Only Jane was left to carry the burden of a mystery that has stayed hidden in the depths of Heart Lake for more than 2 decades. Now Jane has returned to the school as a Latin teacher, recently separated and hoping to make a fresh start with her young daughter. But ominous messages from the past dredge up forgotten memories. And young, troubled girls are beginning to die again, as piece by piece, the shattering truth slowly floats to the surface. So, to me, a line from The Bolter that I think would fit this book would be: as she was leaving, it felt like breathing. All her fucking lives flashed before her eyes. It feels like the time she fell through the ice, then came out alive, because she seems to have been surrounded in her youth by people who were dying, and she somehow made it. Now she's returning. The next song I want to talk about is Robin, which is a song about the fleeting innocence of childhood. And for that reason, I paired it with The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton and Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson, both young adult novels that deal with some heavy topics like death of friends. And the lines from Robin that I think that fit this idea, the loss of innocence, are: you have no room in your dreams for regrets. You have no idea. The time will arrive for the cruel and the mean. And for the final pairing, I paired the manuscript with My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So, another disclaimer: I have not read My Dark Vanessa, but I have heard a lot about it on BookTube and Bookstagram and places like that. I don't know if I will read it, but let me give you the synopsis of My Dark Vanessa. 2000. Bright, ambitious, and yearning for adulthood, 15-year-old Vanessa Y becomes entangled in an affair with Jacob Strain, her magnetic and guileful 42-year-old English teacher. 2017. Amid the rising wave of allegations against powerful men, a reckoning is coming due. Strain has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student who reaches out to Vanessa, and now Vanessa suddenly finds herself facing an impossible choice: remain silent, firm in the belief that her teenage self willingly engaged in this relationship, or redefine herself in the events of her past. But how can Vanessa reject her first love, the man who fundamentally transformed her and has been a persistent presence in her life? Is it possible that the man she loved as a teenager and who professed to worship only her may be far different from what she always believed? And the line from the manuscript that I feel pairs well with My Dark Vanessa is: she thought about how he said, since she was so wise beyond her years, everything had been above board. She wasn't sure. So thank you all for drinking the Swift tea with me. If you like this video and you would like to see more like this, please let me know. I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button and subscribe. And I am open to comments. I want to hear what you think about these pairings, which books you would pair with which songs. Please let me know so we can continue this conversation. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.